the Friday Cocktail, presented by Anna Glowinski.
I'm delighted to have our next guest on the line. More machine than man, I believe. He's written a book called The Warrior Mindset, and we're talking fighting as opposed to, getting really anxious and worrying too much about things. And we're going to be going into his mindset, his history. It's all about jiu-jitsu. Roger Gracie, 10 times world champion. Roger, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. A pleasure to have you here. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So we're going to be talking, we're going to split this chat a little bit because you've got to understand that many of our listeners are not jiu-jitsu. They don't know too much about jiu-jitsu, but most people are interested in getting to know sort of the human person behind achieving greatness. So we'll be talking about you, your mindset, your background, but I also do know that we have some jiu-jitsu fans listening and tuning in, especially because of this. So right at the very end, we'll sneak in some technical questions, if that's okay with you.
Of course. Awesome.
So first and foremost, what is jiu-jitsu? For those who don't know, what sets it apart from other martial arts?
I think jiu-jitsu is the beautiful way of fighting, usually I say, because it's the art of fighting without having to strike your opponent, which makes it unique. When you think about fighting, you think about throwing punches and kicks against your opponent, against each other. And that is a very aggressive and you have the beauty also, but in the general views, like how ugly of fighting, when you have to knock each other out. Jiu-jitsu is the beautiful way of fighting that you don't have to hurt your opponent. It's a grappling base. Your body gets entangled. You fight for dominance. So you can dominate and pin your opponent down without having to physically hurt him, like striking. Is the way that you see two brothers when they're very young, when they're 2 years old, they grapple on the floor, they roll. That's kind of play fighting, that's jiu-jitsu. It's a self-defense without having to strike your opponent back.
That's a really nice description, actually. Is that how it felt to you all the way through your career, even when it became really, really serious, that you're still just enjoying it like you were role-playing and fighting with your brother?
Yes, that's what I fell in love with it. You can fully fight, engage someone. You can go as hard as you can, but there's no, you're not striking. Like I play with my best friends, with my family members. You go full on, and you're still best friends after. Any other type of martial arts, when you go full on, the friendship is over. You cannot be friends. You cannot be best friends with someone who's just trying to knock you out daily. You hate the other person. When he's really physically hurting you or you're in trouble, it's he knocks you out. The friendship is over. If a friend of my best friend is knocking me out, that's it. He's no longer my best friend. In jiu-jitsu, you don't have that. Once you dominate, once you put your opponent in a submission lock, he taps, he verbally taps, or his hand goes, touches the floor or your body. That means you have to let go. That's it, fight over, without going to the extreme or hurting and injuring someone. The moment the other person taps, it can be verbally, it can be with the hand on the floor, the hand on your body. That's a signal for the fight to stop. That means I lost. I'm giving you a signal that I lost, and that's it. Then we start again and we go. That's what the beautiful is. So that's why, I fell in love. It's I'm very passionate about fighting. I dedicated my whole life to it because I'm not a very aggressive person, but I'm a great fighter. That's very difficult to do.
And you mentioned fighting with your family there. You come from a very unique family. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and its connection with jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so family has been in my family for generations. My grandfather, him together with his brothers, with the sons, they kind of transformed the world of martial arts. With the traditional jiu-jitsu, there's the old version of what used to be for what they created, which nowadays is everywhere that you see. BJJ, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the biggest martial arts in the world. The day that they created UFC was created by my cousin, Horion, to prove the efficiency of jiu-jitsu against all other martial arts. When his brother Royce fought and dominated every single other martial arts. He changed the people's perception of fighting. Back in the days, if you think about fighting, you think of Bruce Lee. You think of Muhammad Ali. It's a stand-up fight. You have to strike your opponent. When UFC came, Michael, Hoyt was fighting in the gi, in the kimono. He wasn't really trying to strike people out. Actually, he was the one getting attacked by every other big guy out there, or every other martial arts. People were trying to knock him out, were trying to destroy him. He kind of, with his body, he dominated everyone and submitted. Everyone has to tap and give up the fight. And I think that shocked the world. Like, you can actually fight someone, grabbing the other person and take them down. Because the idea of wrestling, wrestling being there for ages, but wrestling is just about taking your opponent down and touch his shoulders on the floor. That's it. The fight does not go beyond that. I think once the fight goes on the floor, that's when the beauty of jiu-jitsu starts. That's when you can really dominate and control another bigger person.
And for you, when did you realize that it was so important for you to train and to want to become the best? Was it just something that you were always going to do because that was your background? Because you actually described yourself as a chubby, self-contained kid, which I find really funny. How did you transition from that?
I fell in love with jiu-jitsu when I was about 15. That's when, I really experienced what it is to be a jiu-jitsu fighter, what it is to be part of, a Gracie fighter. And from that moment on, my life changed. Before, I've trained, but very little. I never really won anything. I wasn't really committed to train. No one expected me to be a champion.
Yeah.
But when I was 15, I got closer to. I went to visit my uncle. I stayed with him for my summer holidays at school. And I lived his daily life. He used to teach at his academy. He used to go. My cousin was there. He was training to compete, was slightly older. And I just fell in love. I think from that moment on, my life changed.
And what does it take to become a champion? How much training? How many hours a day fighting, training? What's it look like?
It takes dedication. It's everyday dedication. You can train 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. There's no right or wrong. You just have to train hard every day for years. Like everything in life, any skill is a skill that you have to develop, right? The more you train, the more you develop your skill, like learning a new language. You can have a lesson once a week. How long you're going to take to speak a new, that language? If you have a lesson every day, you'll be an expert. Jiu-jitsu is the same. It's the dedication that you invest. I was every day, twice a day. My goal was I knew every champion before me. They used to train every day, twice a day. So I'm okay, I'm going to go to the morning lesson and then going to go to the evening lesson every single day. I was there. And it paid off. You see your progress. It was getting better.
And when did you realize, I'm good at this? Getting that first world championship, what did it feel like? And you're completely committed then?
Yeah, I think by 19, I was I started becoming really good. Suddenly, I'm challenging everyone ahead of me. Yeah, because my progress was quite fast. It was faster than usually everybody else around me.
That sounds like an incredibly short trajectory. I've spoken to many professional athletes in my time, and 4 years, 15 to 19, to becoming the best in the world. That sounds like. What do you attribute that to? God-given
I wasn't
talent?
The best in the world when I was 19. Yeah, no, I wasn't the best in the world when I was 19. But I was very, very good. I was, by 19, I knew that the speed that was progressing was quite fast. I'm in the right direction. If I carry on this way, I knew I'll be the best.
Wow. What an amazing feeling that must be. But you also, you call your book The Warrior Mindset. Why have you decided to focus on mindset rather than skills development?
No, because, I wanted to, when I decided to write the book, I wanted to tell people my story, but not just my story, not just to tell what happened with me, since I was a child. I was let me try to find a way to tell a story and at the same time trying to maybe help people, the same way to tell people how I became how I became me. So it's the mindset behind, which I think is this is the best part. The one thing is for you to hear someone telling the story. The other one is like for them to tell you how they became, who they became. So I think that's, mixing both together. Like, because I don't want, the goal is not just to tell people my story. It's like if I can help people in their lives, I think that's more important than telling my story. So I try to mix both together. That's why, we decided to call the Warrior Mindset. Because, people need motivation in life. Like I had help. I couldn't become what I did, who I became without help. So if I can help people in their goals, that's my goal.
And it sounds like there's definitely a takeaway from the book, even if it's not specifically becoming a jiu-jitsu world champion, it's like a mindset that people can apply to their everyday lives. How would you describe that mindset? What are the benefits? How do you dig deep into it? You specifically mention the TAO of a champion. Where does that come from, and how can everyday people apply it?
I think the main part of it is like you need to know where you want to go. You need a direction. Otherwise, you're just floating around and you don't know where to go. If you know where you want to go, then you can work hard to get there. That's the first thing you need. You can ask any successful person in the world in any area. They only became who they are because they had a goal. They knew what they wanted to be. Once you know who you want to be, like what you want to achieve in life, then you just go towards that goal. Then it's just the dedication to get there. It's the path is you'll not be a straight line. Then you have the challenges, the hard ways. It's dealing with failure, because there is no success without dealing with failure. But you're failing, but your trajectory doesn't change. It's like I lost many times like that. If I would have felt the weight of that loss too heavy to carry, I would have stopped. Okay. But that didn't bother me, because this is the natural process to success. It is to fail. That's what I think is important that people understand. That's one of the things that I try to tell people in the book. It's failure is natural. You have to embrace failure. You think of any scientist. How many years do they take to prove a theory? They is a constantly failing. There is no success without failure in any area. That's what I think is every successful person knows how to deal with failure. Like it does not bother them. It's just you have to accept as natural part of the process.
For you personally, can you remember experiencing a particularly hard failure or a setback that you had to overcome?
When I lost the world championship, it's 1 year of training and dedication. When you get to the final, you lose. And then what then? Yeah. Like the next day I was in the gym. I'm like, okay, too bad. I was competing, and then, I think I got robbed. The referee made a mistake. I didn't stop to complain to the referee. I'm like, I cannot change the past. I'm like, okay, I lost it. But in the end, I blame myself. I'm like, I let the fight be too close. Mm-hmm. I just need to get better, because my opponents, they're too close to me. So if there's a doubt, it can go either way. Like, okay, like the referee made a mistake, or I made a small mistake, and then the fight didn't go the way I wanted. I just need to be much better than my opponent. So my way, I'm just going to go back to the gym and train hard. So I learned from those losses, whichever way that I lost for Rio, or I think I got robbed. I'm like, I don't care. I need to get better and to get better and to get better. And that mentality every year was always better than the year before. So it's, you accumulate that over the years. And I became who I am.
And your mentality to be a successful fighter, is it reality that you have to be cold and calculated, or is that a myth? You seem like a pretty friendly guy.
You need to have a cold mind, because when you're dealing with extremes, especially emotions, you need to be able to control your emotions, to think clearly. Any situation that you find yourself this, adrenaline kick in, and like it's an emotional situation. If you let emotion dictate your actions, I guarantee you will not be the right action. You will not take a very clear, decision. Anytime you get angry, think when you're angry or when you're upset or when you're sad, if you try to make a decision at that moment, you will not, I guarantee you, not be the best one. That's for everyone. So it's like you need to learn how to hold your emotions in place, think clearly, analyze the situation without emotional, and you will always make a better decision. Always. Always. There's no question.
Do you think that's just the type of person you are, or is this something that you can specifically train to switch off your emotions?
I think you can be trained, but usually people who are too emotional, it's very hard to,
it's not the sport for them.
It's very hard to succeed because it's stronger than them. It can be trained. Like, over the years, I was always very calm. I was always like a control person, but I became more because I realized how important that is. So, and once I made mistakes. I was angry in some fights that I made a wrong move and got me into trouble. But you have to consciously realize what you've done. And next time, like, I can't be angry. I cannot be angry during the fight. If something bad happens, I have to just accept that it happened, carry on fighting. It's without letting emotion take over. So I'm not perfect. I learn with my mistakes the same way that everybody learns. But there's people that are just stubborn, and it's either you learn how to do that and you succeed, or you are second best. Every person who goes like very far, they control the emotion. Like, point me one. There is not one person that's like super successful in his area. There's a very emotional person. I cannot think. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know anyone. It doesn't exist.
I suppose not. If you're defining success in that way, I suppose you're definitely right. Yeah. But do you say there's also a responsibility that comes with controlling your emotions? It's one thing to find success with it, but also, with your training, with your knowledge and your ability, you're basically a walking weapon. It's like walking around with a gun in your pocket or something. Do you feel like you do, as a top level fighter, need to have a responsibility to know your limits, or to know that your limits are so much higher than everybody else's, and be able to have self-discipline out in the real world?
Yeah, of course. Imagine Muhammad Ali. If he would get angry everywhere he goes and start knocking people out. Of course. But it's the need. Like, I think as a fighter, once you understand fighting, once you get involved, the last thing you want is to fight someone in the street. That's the last thing you want. Like, you do that every day for a living. You train for hours into fighting. Like, you're going to get angry because a guy just stepped on your foot and, he's angry with you. Like, I think it's the opposite. It calms you down. And I see that with every day in my school. I teach, I have many schools. And when people start training, regular people, not just fighters, like, 99% of my students, they're just regular people that train as a hobby. And, the thing that you get when they start training, they divert their energy towards training. And the last thing they want is to fight someone outside. It's the opposite. When they see themselves in a situation like in an argument or something that can escalate, they don't escalate, they de-escalate. It works the opposite way. Not just with fighters, not just with me, with anyone.
Yeah. And so what's next for you? You've got the medals, you've written a book, you've got your schools. Do you still have goals and dreams and objectives?
Oh, I do, of course. I think I have personal goals, to become a better person. That's always is to evolve in many aspects in life, to become even calmer, wiser. So, this self-improvement is very important. We cannot stop learning about ourselves, especially. And, business, like family. I have, other goals in business, open more academy, teaching more people. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Roger, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
Pleasure to be here. Take care.
So that was Roger Gracie, and his book is called The Warrior Mindset, the TAO of a Champion. It sounds absolutely fascinating for fighters and non-fighters alike. If you'd like to get your hands on it, you can find it on Amazon or, of course, on the Talk Radio Europe bookshop.